Chapter 3 Bookshop Clue. Puzzled but intrigued by the strange old man in the tailor shop, Nancy walked toward him. "Why are you laughing?" she asked. "Didn't the mannequin that used to be in the window belong to Farouk Tahmasp?" Instead of replying, the wizened man pulled up his legs, held his knees in both hands, and rocked in this position without saying a word. But he continued to ha-ha. Nancy was exasperated, but tried hard not to show it. "You knew the rug dealer Farouk, didn't you?" she inquired. The old fellow did not answer, but continued his uproarious laughter. Nancy concluded he must be senile, and probably she could never learn the truth from him. And perhaps he did not know the answers. She walked back toward the tailor, who sat staring in amazement, a needle raised in his right hand. Finally, he brought his arm down and went on mending a man's coat he held on his lap. Nancy asked him slowly, "Who owns this building?" As the man looked at her helplessly, she said, "You pay rent to somebody for your shop, don't you?" This time the tailor understood. He smiled in a friendly way and replied, "Curtis Realty Company, around the corner." He pointed toward a side street. Nancy thanked him. She decided that at the first opportunity she would go there and find out if anyone at Curtis knew what had become of the mannequin. "Any luck?" Ned asked as she got into the car. Nancy shook her head and told about the funny old man and his strange remark. She and Ned tried to figure out what he had meant, but were unable to make any sense out of it. "I think," said Ned, "he's a kook. Let's forget him." The couple discussed the other aspects of the mystery until they reached the dock. There they boarded a sleek speedboat which was owned by a friend of Ned's. "What a beauty," Nancy remarked. "Yes, she's pretty cool." Ned gave the engine full power, and it raced along so fast the nose lifted out of the water. The wind blew Nancy's hair out straight in back of her. Ned said he had picked a lovely picnic spot along the upper river. Nancy tried hard not to miss any of the beautiful scenery along the way, or any of Ned's conversation. This ranged from some of his amusing adventures trying to sell life insurance to the upcoming football schedule of Emerson College. But her mind constantly wandered back to the mystery of the mannequin. Finally, Ned realized this and said, "Nancy, if the Farouk case should take you to Turkey, how about letting me go along as your strong-arm man?" Nancy laughed and did not answer him directly. She said, "Wouldn't it be fascinating to visit Istanbul and see the mosques and the bazaars and the beautiful Bosporus?" Ned did not reply, because at that moment a boat with 3 12-year-old boys, one a reckless pilot, was bearing straight down on them. "Crazy kids," Ned muttered, as he swerved sharply to avoid the other craft. He yelled at them, "Look where you're going!" The boys paid no attention. "How about a drag race?" the pilot called out. "No thanks," Ned yelled. "Chicken!" the boys shouted and went on. In a little while, Ned pulled toward the shore and docked the boat at a small pier. He picked up the picnic box and helped Nancy out of the boat. They walked along the shore to a small grove of trees and sat down. Both were hungry and enjoyed the delicious lunch of roast beef sandwiches, peaches, and angel cake. As they finished eating, Ned said, "Tell me, Nancy, what Farouk's mannequin looked like." "Perhaps I can show you better by making a sketch of her," Nancy suggested. From her purse, she took a sheet of paper and 3 colored pencils, which she always carried with her. She worked industriously for a few minutes, then held up the sketch. Ned grinned. "Groovy picture! But how do you expect me to know what the mannequin looked like, with that veil wound around her head and across most of her face?" "You're right," Nancy replied, laughing. "But all I can do is guess at the rest of her face." She turned the sheet over and made a completely new sketch. When Nancy finished, the face on the paper that stared up at her looked almost alive. She was a beautiful girl with an oval face framed by long black hair. "Wow!" Ned exclaimed when she showed it to him. "A real doll!" Mannequin. The couple wondered if by any chance the mannequin could have looked like the face in the sketch. If so, and she was around River Heights, there was a good chance of finding her. "I'm sure nobody would have destroyed such an attractive mannequin," Nancy remarked. "Well, I'll have to work on that angle of the mystery another day." She and Ned climbed back into the speedboat and went on up the river until they came to the bookshop. It was a quaint structure with its own docking facilities, where customers tied up their craft and went inside to make their purchases. As Nancy entered, she said, "What an amazing place! I've never seen so many books in such a small area." Ned smiled. "The owner brags that he has a copy of almost every current book, and also some that are out of print or rare. I want to pick up 2 or 3 volumes in connection with my courses next fall. Suppose I meet you here at the front door in a little while." Nancy nodded, and he went off. She began looking around at the rows and rows of books, finally coming to a section on foreign countries. In a few seconds, she located a whole shelf of books on Turkey. After choosing one on rugs, she picked up a volume on the history of the country and looked at the table of contents. "Famous Pashas" was the title of one chapter. Nancy turned to that part of the book and soon became absorbed in reading passages about Turkish history in which various pashas, men of high government rank, had been involved. Turning a page, she blinked in disbelief. One of the famous men had been named Tahmasp. "I wonder if Farouk is a descendant of his," she asked herself. "Maybe Dad could contact a living member of his family and find him that way." Nancy purchased the book and also another on Istanbul. She went to the front door, but Ned was not there yet. Seeing a pay telephone in the corner of the shop, Nancy called her father and told him what she had read. The lawyer said he would cable the police chief of Istanbul immediately to find out if Farouk Tahmasp or any member of his family lived there. "I'll tell the chief I have good news for Farouk. Then, if Farouk gets the message secondhand, he won't feel that he has to hide any longer." By the time Nancy reached the front door again, Ned was there, and she told him of her possible clue. He chuckled. "I was sure that if I brought you here, you'd learn something useful." The trip back to River Heights was without incident. Ned remarked, "I'm glad those crazy kids got off the river. I'd hate to see this borrowed boat wrecked." The craft was secured, and Nancy and Ned returned to the Drew house. They found Bess and George there with Hannah Gruen. At once, Bess rushed up to the couple. "Wait until you hear the cool surprise we have for you." End of chapter 3.